Good morning. It's been a long time since I've been able to present to you a, a rifle. It's it's been a lot of work doing refinishing, etc., and I haven't really had time to put something together. But a friend of mine loaned me his rifle, which is one of my dream rifles. It's one of my top fives, and what it is a Eddystone 1917. It was this one was built in 1918, in June of 1918, and it was built at Eddystone, Pennsylvania, which was an arsenal that was set up for World War One to build these guns. So, but before we get into the gun, let's talk a little bit about the history of the gun. Okay, what happened was back in 1910, the British had decided that they wanted a better gun than what they had. They had the Mark III, so they wanted to be able to compete. So they got together and they decided to build it on a Mauser type platform. There's a lot of Mauser in this gun, and at the time that was state of the art, and it was something that everybody figured that they could borrow and make their guns a little bit better. Especially the bolt is a Mauser type bolt, and so anyway, so they were doing their thing. They decided what they wanted to do was not only just change the gun, they wanted to change the round that was in it. And what they did was they went with a 276 round, which was much more powerful than the 303 Brit. And they continued on doing their research and deciding what they wanted to do. And eventually they called it the P13 or the 1913. The British, we call things model, they call their things pattern. So it's a pattern 13, P13. Well, what happened was the war came in 1914. The British entered into World War One, so they had to stop their research. Part of the reason was the 1913 that they were making. For repetitive fire, the barrels got too hot and were fouling, so they decided to come up with the 1914, which, although incorporates a lot of the stuff that they were working on, it still has some of the older stuff, that the old reliable standby stuff. So the 1914 came along. They weren't able to keep up with the supply for the 1914, so they asked the United States to help out, and they contracted with us to help build their guns. They would be in Remington and Winchester built the guns for them and sent them over there under contract. We weren't involved in the war. We were just working on contract, I guess, helping them. We were helping them in so many other ways. We essentially were in the war anyway, but we hadn't had troops committed, I guess, to do it. So we were building the rifles, the 1914s, for the British. And in 1917, we entered the war. And when we entered the war, I think they said we had 280,000 1903s, which was really nothing. I mean, if we're going to go fight a war. So we had to build more guns. So they said, well, the standard was the 1903, but if we were deciding that we wanted to start building 1903s, we'd had to tear down basically the build of the Winchester and Remington areas, and so that we could build the 1903s. So the decision was made is we'll make our own version of the 1914. And things were already pretty much set up anyway for it, so it would be a lot easier to transition over to the 1917. One of the major differences with the 1917 is that we had plenty of 1306, plenty of 30-06 ammo, and so we rechambered these guns to the .30-06. And the rest of it is pretty much the same. It's like I said, they're mirrors of each other almost, except for, we had to do new rifling in the barrel, we had to do new chambering, we had to do a bunch of different things so that we could accommodate the 30-06. One of the advantages of that is the magazine itself is actually designed for the 303 Brit, which is a rimmed round. The 30-06 is not a rimmed round. Here's the 30-06 here. This is a dummy round. 30-06. And because it's not rimmed, we were able to fit 6 rounds into their 5-round magazine, which is an advantage. The stripper clips themselves that they used to use to push the rounds down inside. I sat back, there we go. It was sat down inside. Were still 5 rounds, but we had a 6-round magazine. This rifle, the Eddystone, not this one in particular, but was carried by Sergeant York during World War I when he captured a German magazine nest and captured a bunch of people and killed a bunch of people and got the Congressional Medal of Honor. So he had the 1917, and he also had his 1911 handgun. By the end of the war, we had the Winchester and the Remington factories were making the 1917. They also took a locomotive factory in Pennsylvania called Eddystone, and they converted it over to making 1917s also for the war. And that's what this is. This is an Eddystone. So it was made in Pennsylvania. The numbers were Eddystone by the end of the war made 1,181,000 of these things, and Remington made 545,000, and Winchester made 465,000. So Eddystone actually made more than the 2 other companies put together. Eddystone was actually a division or a part of Remington. So that even though it was a different area, it was still a Remington factory, as is evidenced all over the gun. Let's see. I think rifling chamber 1306. I'm sorry, I'm reading the notes. It's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this gun in particular. This 1917. It said it was made in Eddystone. It's made in June of 2018, of 1918, and the war ended in November of 2018. So I'm not sure how much action it really saw. I mean, I don't know, but I do know that it was in World War II. So that's one thing there. It's got a butt plate, and on the butt plate it's got a little door. The British had doors. A lot of people had doors, and that's where they used to put their cleaning materials. There's no cleaning kit in this one, but that's where they put the cleaning kit. It's bolt action. It's got a swept bolt, and the reason is that it's when you push it down, your finger is right there. Showed that on the French gun that we showed. What it's got is it's got a magazine. Like I said, the magazine would fit 6 1306 rounds in. For the sight, you have your ladder sight, the battle sight right there, which is peep sight. and then it can go up and you can use it for further distances. Eddystone, U.S. Eddystone is printed right up here on the bed there. You go on up, it's got a two-piece handguard, and up here you got your swivel, your stacking swivel. You got your bayonet things, lugs, and you have your guard up for your front sight, which is kind of a classic. When you see that, you kind of guess that's an Enfield kind of thing. So they do that. Now, one of the things that's a lot of things unusual about every gun, but is that this is not the original barrel. This barrel was put on after World War I was over. What happened was, after the war, they took the guns and they stored them. And then when World War II came, we needed more rifles also, and the world needed more rifles. So we took them out of storage, and what they did was they replaced the barrels. One of the symptoms or signs that there's a replaced barrel is, if you look at the receiver, it looks different in the light, but it's black. It's been blued. And then if you look at the rifle, the barrel itself, it's kind of a greenish, which means that it's got a different finish, which is Park Rising, I believe, is what's on it. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, it's very obvious is, and I'll post a picture of it, is up here it talks about JA, and the JA stands for Johnson Automatic, and they were the ones that made these barrels that were put on the 1917s, and that's the definitive right there. But underneath it, it still has the flaming bomb, which the flaming bomb is a Remington thing. So all over it's like the 0383s that I had, etc. Is the different parts are labeled by who made them. The rear sight has an E on it. It's made by Eddystone. So you know that that's an original for this gun. But then you look at the other parts, and the bolt on the handle is an R, which means for Remington. And you go along and you look at the different parts, and the release for the bolt right here has an R on it. So because initially they had problems when they were building the guns, when it was just Winchester and Remington, making the 1914s, they made them different and just a little bit, and the parts weren't interchangeable. So the same thing happened when they started making the 1917s, where they made them just a little bit different, Winchester and Remington, and that caused problems because they wanted things to be interchangeable. It didn't take long, and they got things together, and with the Eddystone, and so any parts, and that's the beauty of it is that, after the war, when they were putting things back together again to lease to other countries for use for ourselves. We used them in World War II for support, not for front line, but we used them for the support guns, like for the artillery guys and things like that. They had the 1917 initially, and that made the burden a lot less on like the other companies that were making the guns for World War II. The one thing that we did keep was the caulking on. You get to this point, it hasn't been caulked yet. It's only caulked when you push it up, and you can feel the spring pop in there. Whereas many of the other guns, they caulk when you open them up and pull it out, and I think that it's it's easier that way. It's a lot less strength because you really have to shove on these things to cock them. I'm trying to think of. I don't have a Mauser bolt, but one of the things, if you remember, you can go back and look at the British guns and the Mausers that I put out, is this is the Extractor, and the Extractor is a big long thing, and it's the Mausers have that on the back. The way that it's set up with a cocking device, etc., is very, very much Mauser, and the Mausers were proven. They worked well, and they were easy to take care of, and people wanted to copy them so that they could have a gun that was also all those things. I'm trying to think of what else we got. The safety. This is the safety. Back is on. Forward is off. Is very much like the Mark III safeties, except the Mark III safety was on the other side. It was on the left side, and you can't have it on the left side now because you have the Mauser bolt release here. So when the bolt comes back, you don't pull on the trigger to release the bolt. You pull on this little thing here, and it releases it. And it's also the ejector. I'm trying to think of what else. Other than I'd like to hide this gun and keep it for myself, but the problem is that the guy knows where I live, so he'd be able to track me down. The 1917 fought with the 1903 during World War One, and it helped win World War One. And I don't really know a lot about World War One, although I'm learning. I'm really trying to wrap my head around the whole World War One thing. So if anybody has an extra one hanging around, you can send me an IM, whatever, and I will give you my address to send it. So I got the 1917. The Craig is also another one of my. The Craig was 1892. Is another one that I would love to have for guns, but anyway. All right, well that's the 1917. Oh, also I forgot. How do I know that it went through yards other than the barrel's been changed? There's stamps on the gun. Let's see. Nope. I'll put pictures of them on the thing. There's a stamp on here that's the inspection stamp. It's a number with an eagle's head on top of it. But the one that came from the arsenal is over here, and it's RAP. And the RAP stands for the Rettinen Arsenal, Rettinen Arsenal, and the P stands for the guy that ran it, which was Harry Peterson, and he's the one that was in charge. So they put his name on there too. So we know that it went through that arsenal, and that arsenal was open from 1918 to 1962, and so that way there, what happened, we know that it was brought into commission back after World War One and used in World War II. So even at a support level. So, all right, well, thank you.